R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take out T-C-T. Sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, Zittery Slay. Sock it to me, sock it to me. Just a little bit, Zittery Slay. Just a little bit. I'll get tired.
And welcome, everybody. Another Sunday, another respect. Tonight, we've got a very, very special show for you. All the stuff that's going on in this country, and as we know, the famous words from General Flynn, that local action brings on national impact. And tonight, we've got somebody that I'm very proud to call a friend, who has taken that to another extent. And he is running for the governor of California in next year's election. And he's up against a tough battle. But for the first time that I can remember in a very, very long time, you have a regular Joe running for a major public office that could really shift the tide in this country. Even though it's being shifted as we speak, this is something that's very, very important to every single one of us, every single taxpayer, every single Californian, and everybody around the rest of the country and around the world, because this is how politics should be carried out. So to lead into him, I'm going to give you a little bit of a surprise that we've been waiting for, and that will be our intro into our guest. So without further ado,
You need to put me in the state house. You should make a governor out of me. I'll jump right in and fix up California, and all I have to do is just be me. Well, I promise I'll clean up San Francisco. I'll cut your taxes, you'll all think that's swell. From Sacramento, I'll fix education. Make sure that all your children learn well. Well, I hope you all make Louis Herms your governor, and not some bald-head Brit who's on TV. Or businessman or career politician, just a regular guy who's just like you and me. I'll clean the parks so you don't have wildfires. Make sure the border's safe for you and me. The Constitution's always been my guideline, 'cause law and order is what I believe. Well, I tell you, I won't be one big phony. Won't make hand gestures like I've lost my mind. I'll make sure that we take care of our people, and we won't leave no one behind. So I hope you'll vote to put me in the state house. Then I know that you will smile and say, we're glad that we made Louis Herms our governor, because he's the best trust for California.
and so with that, I would like to welcome, hopefully, the next governor of California, my good friend, Louis Herms.
Man, I'm doing great. There had to be a great writer and singer on that bit. That's for sure. That was amazing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It was an honor making it, and a lot of fun too.
That was cool. Thank you, sir. That was awesome.
Absolutely, anytime. So first, most important, because you've been running your butt around like crazy, how are you doing?
Good, good. You know, we already knew this is going to be a burn the candle at both ends. adventure, but I think I've been groomed, not in the bad way, to get myself to a place where I can do this with the True tours I've done, and working 60, 70 hours a week most of my life. So this is butter. We've got this.
Absolutely. And for those of you who did watch it last weekend, when I simul-streamed the Republican debate out in California, Lewis did a phenomenal job. As far as I'm concerned, he won that debate, but that's for everybody in California to decide. If we could decide it, it'll all be over already.
That's right.
And the state would be back on track to being a good state. But anyway, as you had to do in that debate, let's get to some of the topics that you're gonna be facing, you're gonna have to deal with. And right now, one of the big topics on their plate is what just happened with the unfortunate passing of Prop 50, redistricting. I know that the Republicans have tried to do it and are doing it in certain states, but in a state where there are so few Republican representatives to begin with, nationally and locally, what they're planning on doing is horrific. So what would you do in regard to that?
Well, first, we need to understand the construct of what's really going on. This is the first time in history that a proposition on the actual verbiage of the proposition said something to the effect, we're doing this in retaliation for another state. And the marketing says we're doing this, flat out said we're doing this in retaliation for President Trump. That's disgusting. If that's the level of politics that we have, which we know we have, but to be that blatant, that's stomach turning at its worst. But we also have to understand that we don't have a free and fair election, not in the state of California for sure. And I'll give you anecdotal evidence of that. So they said Proposition 50 passed 63.8%. So we are supposed to believe that only 36%, about a third, disagreed with this Marxist redistricting program. I have a lot more faith in we the people. So what I did immediately, Mark, is I decided to dig into the numbers. And I used Shasta County as the model. Why? Because Shasta County is the one county that we know has paper ballots and same-day counting, and that the vote is harder to steal there, except for the fact that they, many places still have mail-in ballots also. So checking into that, ironically, so the yes vote was 63.8%, but in Shasta County, where there are no machines, the yes vote was 30%. How is that possible? Right? So and then if you go to other counties that have more restrictions and not this sick process of mail-in ballots and stealing the votes and harvesting, it was very similar. So I believe wholeheartedly that the true vote was a no, and it was stolen. More evidence of this is the first within the 1 second it came out on CNN that they lost. I mean, that it won, that we lost, and that was a 66.6% on CNN. They use that number often, and I don't think it's a coincidence any longer. So the good news is President Trump and his team have already picked this up, and they're going after it. They know this is fake, and they're going to go after it in a hard way. I believe this needs to get all the way to the Supreme Court, which I think it will. I think SCOTUS is going to pick this up, and they'll repair this atrocity. But what it will do is, I believe it's going to trigger an investigation. More public investigation, not the private ones that I've been doing and other people have done in regards to election fraud, but more public ones. So like I said, with COVID, could have been the best thing that happened to us. Maybe this fake fraudulent vote is also the best thing that could have happened to us.
Well, what percentage of the state would you say has the machines and the mail-in voting as opposed to the percentage that doesn't.
95%.
Real easy to cheat.
Yeah. I'll say an uphill battle, to say the least.
Well, it's an uphill battle until they finally expose what went on in 2020, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's a matter of the people buying it. But I don't think they're going to have much of a choice. I think the evidence is going to be pretty clear.
Yeah, it'd be, I would suggest, and I've said this to Trump's administration, that they should go back to 2018, Orange County, California. Because in 2018 in Orange County, California, in that midterm election, they put in 5 Republicans, won the vote, and by the morning, 5 Democrats took that spot. And they had massive videotapes of ballot harvesting coming in the middle of the night there. It's a lot easier just to investigate that. Now, why would you just investigate that? Because that would give you a preponderance of evidence, in my opinion, to now have reasonability to go look at everything else. So that would be my suggestion.
Well, even though this isn't what people would directly relate this topic to, but it absolutely falls under it. I'm going to follow up with the next kind of hot topic, especially in the state of California, with everything that's gone on in LA, the way that things are in San Francisco and everything. Let's talk about law and order and the local police, the sheriff's departments, the mayors, the city councils. What can we do?
Well, one thing we have to understand, if the sheriffs and the mayors and the police are shirking their duties wholesale across the state. So when we say there's nothing we can do, all we have to do is enforce the laws that are already on the books. It's very, very simple. Look at what happened in Berkeley recently. They had a TP USA event. It was scheduled for outdoors. They had to rush them inside. The police stood by while people were being abused from, I would say, the good guys. How is that okay? How is that okay? And the more we do this, and we've seen this in cities that riot a lot, the more that our police step back or they kneel with BLM or whatever they do, right? That is a go signal for the baddies. That's all it is. So we need to enforce the laws that are on the book, and we cannot have this. The ICE agents, I feel for the ICE agents. They're just doing their job. The ICE agents are literally picking up illegal criminals, people that already have a criminal record, other than just the crime of crossing the border illegally. And they're getting abused. Things are being thrown on, they're spit on, they're trying to attack them. My question is, how are they knowing ahead of time that the ICE agents are going to be there? That's pretty scary to me. And let's put it in perspective. Under Obama, he had over 5 million deportations. Trump, I don't believe, has even hit 3 million yet.
But see, that's the key, because we know that whoever is helping them, or however they manage to delve into names, addresses, and homeland to begin with, somebody is getting this information out, almost as if it's being put out as a press release.
Absolutely.
And what you're dealing with there, directly they're criminals, but the behavior of the local police and the sheriff's departments in many of these cities is equally as criminal. And the sheriff, as we've discussed numerous times, is kind of the, how would you put it, the last bastion between the people and the federal government, because they trump everybody, including the governor, as far
As
as
they
law enforcement.
They should. They don't, but they should. Yeah, the constitutional sheriffs that actually abide by the Constitution would be protecting everything and everybody, including our free speech. You know, for example, when there's a law and order that you should have versus what we do have, it's scary to know that I want to go protest, by the way, which is our right, our beautiful right, is to protest, and to not think that I'm protected and they're protecting somebody else. They're protecting people that are trying to harm us. Well, first, I believe if at a protest that you harm somebody at a protest, there should be amplified penalties for that. I believe if you find out that you're a paid agitator, there should be double the amplified penalties for that. And you find out who paid you to go do that, should be triple or quadruple penalties. This alone would stop it if, Mark, if we enforce it. The challenge is it doesn't matter what law you put on the books. If the sheriffs turn their back on it and are too cowardly to do anything about it, well, we're going to be where we are. So I'm going to have a strong talk with a lot of sheriffs coming here soon. And it's very easy. You need to remember your oath. If you do your job, we will have millions behind you to support you and hold you up as a bastion of what you should do. If you shirk your duties, we're also going to hold you accountable.
Now, how exactly would you be able to do that, considering the fact that to a certain extent, law and order wise, they outrank you?
No, they do. They do. But you know what? They don't outrank. They don't outrank we the people. So I would have a website that's called exposure.ca.gov. And if a sheriff's not doing his duties, he or she will be posted front page on there and with exactly what I believe their violations are. And let the people handle it. Let the people stand out of side of their offices all day long with their signs, constantly requiring meetings, calling them out. And then we're going to take it to another level and a prosecutorial level as well.
Is there any way, and this is something that I've looked into for years, and I know in certain states you can, certain states you can't, but is there a way to pretty much so do a recall, because they're elected officials, to do a recall and get them removed from office prior to their time?
Yeah, I believe there is. It requires a whole bunch of signatures, but you know what we do really good in California? We get signatures. That's one thing that we do really, really well, because there's a lot of enough people that are unhappy with this. And I think it should be an absolute recall after recall after recall. We need an absolute reset of what's going on, not this new world order reset that people talk about. We're talking about we need to reset back to a set of family values, law and order, to take care of business as it should be intended. I remember growing up, and you probably did as well, that all police cars said protect and serve on them.
Yep.
I rarely see that. I found one recently in Ventura County Sheriff's that said something similar to that. And some things that sheriff's doing, I like what he's doing. So I'm not surprised that he actually has that on their cars.
But it's so few and far between.
It is. 58 counties, that's just one.
It's very sad. It's very sad to watch. And one of your opponents happens to be a county sheriff.
That's right.
And, I don't have, the only thing that I know in regard to that county is the guy who was arrested for the planned assassination of the president. But, and there's been plenty of countering on that as to whether or not they actually had a case, et cetera, et cetera. But these things have to be controlled, because this is public safety we're talking about. This is the residents' welfare that we're talking about. And it's hard for any of us to imagine really what's going on now, because you watch and you see how much law and order is being shirked. You see how people seem to be going more towards, well, we have to protect the innocent. We can't worry about crime. We have to get rid of the police and this and that and the other. And you wonder what the hell they're smoking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I enjoy the ability to walk down the street at night and not have to look over my shoulder. And how you can not have police and do that, I just plain don't understand.
Yeah, it's crazy, because a couple of things which just blow me away. There's so many places where unfortunately police aren't doing their job, right? And then you have these groups like Black Lives Matter that are trying to actually eliminate them altogether. So even if they're doing their job, they wouldn't be able to do their job. And we are in a critical time and space in this Marxist revolution, because that's really what we're in the middle of. There's a Marxist takeover of our country. California is already a captured operation that we're trying to take back. Currently, these sheriffs have to stand up, but they can't act like brown shirts either, like they did during COVID, where they were enforcing mandates that are illegal. So now, that being said, there's a lot of good sheriffs. Unfortunately, I can tell you there's one good sheriff in another state that I believe is good. And word is from a couple of interviews that he is scared to death because he believes over 50% of his force are deep state assets. Can you imagine that?
No.
And he thinks they'll take him out. So he's in a position right now where people are talking to him, trying to help him figure out how to navigate those waters, considering he believes that a big percentage of his own police force are on the wrong side. So we've got a lot of work to do. And, I don't do fear porn. I don't try to scare people. I just tell it as is. And so I have a lot of conversations that are going to be going on with these sheriffs. And we'll see what they're made of. And some of them I think are pretty darn good. And some I'm very concerned with.
See, and the point that you brought up in regard to COVID, these are the guys who could have turned all of that around.
Exactly.
Said, a mandate is not a law. There is no reason for this. We're not forcing people to wear masks and distance and businesses to close and everything else. But most of them did.
Yep.
Most of them went right along with it.
Absolutely.
Oh, good God. Now, the other big question that everybody worries about: personal and business taxes, which is, one of the things that drives people out of states.
Yep, sure
It's
does.
driven a lot of Calis out of Cali because the taxes have just been ungodly, usurious. And same thing with businesses. How can you, business, personal, and property, how can that be worked out kind of in a fast amount of time to save the people who are there and maybe attract some of the people back?
This is actually one of the simplest solutions. And as I say, if it's simple, it's God's work. If it's messy, it's something else. So first thing we have to realize that our California budget is chock full of waste, fraud, and abuse. And when I say that, I say as minimum as 50% of it, maybe up to 80%. You imagine that: waste, fraud, and abuse. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to put in a super audit in there, some base called Super Doge. And we're going to go through this and we are going to rip the budgets apart like you cannot imagine. So if we get it down to 50, 60, 70, or 80%, guess what we can get rid of? Income tax and property tax immediately, right? Well, property tax is illegal anyways. It's a way that, and so is income tax. In my opinion, some state people dispute it with me, which is fine. But regardless, we can get rid of both of them. Property tax is in there to steal your home. Why would an elderly person have to pay on something they worked so hard their whole lifetime to own? What right do you have to take my property or to actually charge me money to live in my home? It's just lack of common sense. So we're going to get rid of those two real quick. Now, people say, Lewis, how are you going to prevent the waste, fraud, and abuse in the future after you get rid of it? It's a great question. And that's another simple solution. We're going to put the entire budget of California online, line item expenditures for we the people to audit on their own. In fact, they can even comment there. Wow, you spent $400 on this chair. I just found it on Amazon for $14.99. What's going on there? Hold us accountable, right? This is what we're going to do. There's no way that we're going to be able to steal money ever again in the state of California the way it is. Not to mention, we're going to have to correct all the school bond and bond issues, like the train to nowhere that is stealing billions and billions and billions of dollars that are disappearing into somebody's pockets, but it's not going for what the people voted for. So it's actually a simple solution, and it can be done. People avoid it because they're afraid to take on the parasites that control this operation.
So now, one of the things that I've wondered in regard to that, because every state, every local government has absolutely ridiculous expenditure problems.
Mhm.
Two of the things that I always wondered about is consolidation, because to have state police, county sheriffs, local police, town fire departments, everything in redundancy costs the people a lot of money. Whereas a lot of them can be placed under one heading, like you put the police under the sheriff's department, and you still have the manpower that you need, but everybody's at the same salary, the same pension, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not having the redundancy. Same thing, the local fire department. You don't have to have 15 local fire departments. You can have a couple, depending on the size of your county. All of these different redundancies that are out there could be eliminated. And the other part of that, the second part that I'm always puzzled about is, which has happened tremendously in state, local, and federal government, and it's happened in businesses and everything else. When you call, especially, let's face it, a public official is a public servant.
Mhm.
The people are paying for that. Why can't you get, bless you, why can't you get in touch with your public servants? Why do you have to go through layers of people and automated responses, et cetera, before you get to speak to your representative or anybody in your local county or your local town or anything else?
So a couple solutions here. Number one, the reason why they do this is compartmentalization, so they can keep you away from them, so you don't have the control that we should have. I believe what we should break everything down into is smaller precincts. You know, we have what 10 times the population we had not too long ago when they allocated a certain amount of representatives for one representative for say like 1,500 people, so on and so forth. So it was manageable. It's not manageable now, and it's ripe with corruption. So getting a lot more precincts and have precinct level decision making is the way it would work really well. And plus, how easy is it to just vote that person out if they're not doing their job, or pressure them to do their job, because there's personal accountability within the sector. That being said, your idea of really what you're talking about is a form of redundancy and cross training, where other avenues like police can work in multiple cities instead of just one. So a county would control that, and it's actually the way it should go, because what happens is you're not going to have any overspending if you do that. And if there's a serious situation, you just allocate more people to go there. If there's not, well, they stay in their home area. I can tell you where the place that I live, very safe, and a traffic accident will attract 6 cops because there's nothing to do. They don't have any. So that's an overseeding, I believe, of police in that area for sure. Now, in regards to public servants, what I've noticed, the more questions I ask, the more people I talk to, there's a lot of government workers that do what? Nothing. They literally say, I'm sitting around all day just collecting a check. Well, if everybody was double or triple trained for redundancy, number one, people would want to work harder because they know their job would be on the line, because it would be performance based. And they know there's somebody else there that's going to take their job right away. Not to mention, I think as a whole, I believe in the American spirit, and I think the American spirit wants to earn their dollar. And I think they feel better about working hard and earning their dollar. We need to cut these positions that are ineffective or not working, and put somebody in there that wants to work hard and have a full day of work, and they go home feeling like they're fulfilled because they did something. It's possible. That again will help slash that budget, unnecessary spending.
Now, Also, going back to the police, because the sheriffs are elected officials, they're responsible to the people and have a higher responsibility as far as the local and state government is concerned.
Mhm.
However, police are local employees who are overseen, especially as you get into uh, management officers, they are political appointees. And thus, rather than doing what they're supposed to do, or even saying what they're supposed to say, especially in regard to public information, they're going and doing whatever the mayor or the uh, county exec or the board happens to say they should say. What can be done with that?
Well, I think sheriffs should have more focus on them, and they should be allocated. Well, and they are allocated the power. I think they should be educated on that they do hold the power. So if something doesn't look right, a sheriff, you don't even need an internal affairs division in a police department if you have a sheriff that's a goodly, godly sheriff, because they can be the internal affairs where they go and check and investigate these rogue police officers and these rogue mayors and so on and so forth. The solution's really, really easy. If the sheriffs were actually doing their job and they were letting known that they have the authority to do this, but most importantly, Mark, that they have the support network of the people behind them, then I believe we can change everything in regards to that.
Now, related to all of this is probably every governor's biggest, I won't call it a pitfall, but every governor's blockade, which is the state legislature.
Oh, Lord.
And if the state legislature happens to lean in the opposite direction
Mhm.
that you happen to lean, you're kind of hitting a brick wall. It doesn't go anywhere. But yet again, these are public servants. Public servants, again, who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing for their constituents. They're passing laws that are anti-law and order. They're passing laws that are anti-state resident and lining their own pockets. How do you get around these type of people? I know one of the things that I had proposed a long time ago in New York, we have the no bail law, so that you have a revolving door for your justice. And that cost, this is while I was still working, that cost a few people their lives. It's cost many people their lives, but a few people that I dealt directly in regard to. And I had hinted to the Republican Party in the state of New York and to the people's families themselves in regard to going, finding an attorney who loves to be on TV, and there are plenty of them, and go and sue the state, the governor, lieutenant governor, and each member of the state legislature that signed that bill into existence, and hold them personally responsible, because that's something that's missing throughout the world, is responsibility, personal responsibility. Nobody wants to be responsible for anything. How do you kick the crap out of the state legislature?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic question. So, first thing we would do is, number one, no matter how much pressure, you don't sign their rogue bills that they pass in legislature. That's the easy part, right? And then what you do is when you're writing legislation yourself or getting legislation written, you do it very concise. So instead of having a bill that is 1,500 pages or 100 pages, whatever it is, you can make it 1 or 2 pages, very, very concise. And generally, I would recommend that we do it single issue bill. So it's very, very concrete. Here it is. Now, here's the beauty about that. If it's so obvious, like something to help with ending child trafficking, and it's single issue without all the waters muddied, when a legislator does not vote correctly on that, Boom, they go up on our site, exposure.ca.gov, and there you have we the people pressure that legislator to do the right job. And then that also would trigger an investigation for us of why are they doing this? It seems like they're complicit in child trafficking. That's just one example. All these bills should be very, very easy. Boom, 1-2 pages, vote. 1-2 pages, vote. Very, very, very simple. That will take care of it. And then we'll expose the legislature. And then with a repaired election, they will be out very, very, very soon. In fact, I would even suggest, if possible, and I haven't looked into this, that we would look at recalling many of them immediately. Because the beautiful thing as governor, and I'd rather say guardian of California, I have a duty to make sure our policy gets put through. And if you have a bunch of obstructionist legislators, they're not doing the will of the people. They're doing the will of themselves, their party, or their political payoffs. They will absolutely be exposed over and over and over. I predict that this part of the website that we're going to put out may be some of the top viewed website in the whole world. That's how serious it's going to be.
It has to be, because it's got to be reined in. And we have to get back to the fact that these are public servants and they have to serve the public that they're there to serve. Now, in direct lineage with that is the state constitution. How much of the state constitution needs to be amended in order to really get some of this stuff moving and getting it easily slid through? And how much resistance would you get to doing that?
Well, I'm going to shock you. The California state's constitution is probably the best, most powerful state constitution out of all of the states. So we would ask, if that's possible, why aren't we getting anything done? Because we've had election fraud for over 40 years. That's why. The people actually have more power in California under the Constitution, where if there's a new law you want to enact, you can put it up for vote. Proposition, put it up for vote. Special election, put it up for vote. Over and over and over. And under a real election, California would be clean as clean can be, because the people would be making these decisions. What happened is the deep state figured out probably 40, 50 years ago that, well, we don't want that. So they knew they had to go after the elections. So we're under the illusion that California is putting in a Gavin Newsom and a Nancy Pelosi, and an Adam Schiff and a Maxine Waters, an Eric Swalwell. They were under the illusion that they actually voted for abortion. They were under the illusion that Prop 50 went through. It's not true. The deep state swamp parasites figured out a long time ago that that's the game, because they knew that California had the strongest constitution out there. So what do? They circumvent it by fake fraudulent elections. It's about as disgusting as it can. I'll go as far as I think it's satanic.
That wouldn't be a surprise to anybody, I don't think. But the problem has always been stymieing it.
Yep.
And how to get around it. So, hopefully you do get in and you can take care of that situation.
I think actually President Trump's going to federalize the 2026 election in California. I have a feeling that's where we're going, and that's what should be done, because it's fraud. It's treason. That's what it is.
Well, unless somebody else comes and interferes with that and tries to get that over.
Right. What are the odds, right?
Another big problem in California is, unlike the other states, their 4 seasons are a little bit different.
I know what you're going to say.
Now, the president stated it back during his first term, how simple it is to alleviate that problem. I've always referred to you as one of the true humanitarians out there. And facts being what they are, when the Palisades fire, just like when stuff happened in Asheville and stuff happened in Hawaii, you boots on the ground. You're doing what needed to be done. This is something that doesn't have to be an annual festival. And while the federal government has already offered the opportunity of saying, most of it is federal property to begin with, some of it's state property, let us come in and clean out the trash. If we clean out the trash, there's no fuel for the fires. Why haven't past administrations allowed that to be, so that the residents don't have to face this every single year?
Well, the baddies need natural disasters, although they're unnatural, I believe. They need these disasters because it's another control mechanism for the people. And it also gives an opportunity, which we're seeing blanketly in the Palisades, to do land grabs. So, under the Biden, we know that the Biden administration is attached to China. It's very clear. We know that Gavin Newsom and the current construct of the government is attached directly to China and Xi. We saw the way he temporarily cleaned up San Francisco because his president, Xi, was there. So do you think it's an accident that in the Palisades that Chinese nationalists are running all over the place, measuring land and trying to buy in huge amounts of property contiguously so they can build low-income housing, maybe even safe cities or smart cities? It's not an accident. So how do you get there? You have no fire abatement whatsoever, right? So they look at where they want to go first, and they reversed engineered it. And in order to do that, in order to do what was done in Paradise, in order to do what they're looking at in Altadena and the Palisades, how do you do that? You just have zero fire abatement. But then they know what follows, and this is what we're going to have to deal with probably in this next week. We have torrential downpours in California expected for the next 6 days. Think about that. What always happens after big fires in California? Then we have massive mudslides.
Yep.
Right? They know that they could take care of this. They could take care of it for pennies on the dollar what it costs to fix everything. So anybody with a reasonable mind should now take a deep breath and sit back, regardless of your political party, and go, that's intentional. I mean, how is it that a couple called the Resnicks, these billionaires, own the water rights throughout Los Angeles, about 60% in one area, and they happened to not have the reservoirs filled or the fire extinguishers turned on, and they happen to be Gavin Newsom's largest donor? Is that just a coincidence? I don't think so. Is it a coincidence that almost 40 billion gallons of water pour into the ocean daily when we know we could capture at least half of that? Is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that our reservoirs aren't filled? Is it a coincidence that we're building a train to nowhere, but we can't build our dams and reservoirs up to the height that the best engineers in the world said we can do? Is it a coincidence that they say that we're in a perpetual drought in California, but we're still pouring all the water into the ocean, which would mean we wouldn't be in a drought? This is all a controlled mechanism. And I don't have to wear my tinfoil hat for people to start seeing this. This is not an accident. We just need to open our minds, and I think we're going to see it clearly.
Just out of curiosity, because I had no idea about that, why is that much water being spilled into the ocean every day?
There's no excuse for it whatsoever. President Trump called out Gavin Newsom on this in regards to that, and they can capture a lot of it. They just let it flow. Now they did make some excuses that we need to take care of the Delta smelt, right? So let's take care of one breed of fish. By the way, they proved that it doesn't really help them anyways. But let's go with their narrative. Take care of one breed of fish while we're burning down homes and killing people. That makes a lot of common sense, doesn't it? Fish before families. That should be their slogan.
Well, and this is something, look, this crap started in the 80s.
Sure did.
The
spotted owls. I'm sure you remember that.
Spotted owls with the climate hoax, all of that stuff.
So, Mark, let me get big time conspiratorial on you. This is my wheelhouse. We are intentionally diverted where our attention really should be. So we hear climate change, climate change, climate change. In fact, they're trying to blame the fires on climate change, while the first time in history the Santa Ana winds came from a different direction. I don't know, whatever. And so that's just a tinfoil hat moment. But let's think about this for a second. If it's all climate change and global warming, right, and they really, really, really care about the climate, why don't they care about the pollution that happens when these forest and brush fires are going on? Why don't they care about the pollution that's going on in when you fly from California to Hawaii? They have the Great Pacific Trash Dredge in there. Literally, you can see it from a plane. You can see just miles and miles filled with plastics inside the oceans. If they really cared about trees and they really cared about the environment, why would they let the Amazon rainforest be completely decimated? And then when you call them on it, they say, we'll plant trees, and they intentionally plant palm trees with a certain type of palm oil that prevents anything from the Amazon rainforest growing back in that place almost ever. Why do they do that? Because they're lying to us. We have real climate challenges in this country, in this world right now, but they want you to not look at the ones that science can prove, that we have proof. They want to look at some fantasy cult, which is their climate disorder, which is pure control mechanism. It's like COVID. If you can't see it, you can control them. It's the same thing they did with this climate hoax.
It's mind-boggling, and you just hit on the key word, because that's been going on with everything. It's control. It's how they can control the people best. And, having worked in the media all that time, the one thing I've expressed to people all the time is, what is the biggest and greatest motivator? Fear.
Absolutely.
That's why they do it in teases. That's why the government does it. They tell you that there's a boogeyman out there, and everybody believes it. So very, very sad. Very sad. Let's see. How about the border? Now, we know that a lot of that is being taken care of by the federal government. A lot of it is pretty well stopped, but there are still a lot of illegals in California. There's still a lot of sanctuary cities in California. And you still have a lot of people who, for whatever reason, don't seem to have a problem with the fact that they're paying for these people, whether they realize it or not. But God forbid you should once ask them, how many do you have you invited into your home to live with you? So how would you handle the rest of the border and illegal and the cost to the people?
Excuse me. I would say, first and foremost, most of the people that say they don't care probably aren't paying taxes. So that would be one of it. And excuse me, or they're getting a government check themselves. So of course they're going to turn a blind eye, and it all affects them when their daughter gets raped by an illegal. I mean, suddenly now it affects them. But the reality is, the first thing I would do is I would absolutely go after anybody that has a sanctuary city. That's breaking the law. No can do. Sheriffs, you need to get activated. We can even do stuff with the CHP and the state police if we need to. And let's see if we get pushback from sheriffs. I bet we would not, because that is inherently illegal, because you're saying we are going to harbor you for breaking the law. Think about that. That's harboring. Would it not be a fugitive if they're already in a list and running away? Is that not the definition of a fugitive? So is there not a law that says harboring a fugitive is illegal? And therefore, anybody that pertains to that, the mayors, whoever it is, they go to jail. It's pretty simple. That's not even radical, although you would have the deep state Democrats say that's radical, but that's not radical at all. So that I would absolutely do. And then what you have to do is you have to support our current president in removing the illegals from this country. Now, we have to be honest about this. What is he doing? He's not blanketly removing illegals anyways. They're going after criminals. When I say criminals, I'm saying ones that have a criminal record other than crossing the border. Now, what happens is if they happen to be in a home with 6 or 7 other illegals, they're not going to turn a blind eye and not arrest those illegals also. They're going to capture them at the same time. He has a huge deal in front of him. And I think we need to be honest about this. There's somewhere between 25 and 40 million illegals in our country. We don't have the manpower to deport that many. So there's going to have to be some incentive for them to go back home voluntarily. And that's when we should be working with the other governments and seeing what we can work out in respects to that. People don't like that. People wanted me to say, blankly, round them all up. Well, great, let's do that. But we don't have the manpower to do that. And they would probably be grandparents and have multiple generations inside our country by the time that happened. So the fastest way I think is that there has to be some incentive created, just like there was an incentive for them to come here. Thank you, Joe Biden. Right? So there should be an incentive for them to go back home. Do I believe in paying people that are criminals? No, I don't. But we also have to be reasonable about this. You either want illegals in your country or you don't. If you don't, we need to pull out all stops to get them back home. And if I would say one incentive could be, we're gonna deport you. If we catch you, you have a lifetime ban to ever come back into this country. There's an incentive, is it not? It's a stick. May not be the carrot, but it's a stick. The carrot is you having a chance to come back here. Now, if you self-deport, we'll give you X amount of months and you come back here and you can apply for a visa or something like that. To me, that's very reasonable. Wouldn't you agree, Mark?
Especially since they were giving them money along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think this could help really, really quickly. And I'm honestly surprised that President Trump hasn't gone that route yet. Maybe it's on the horizon. I don't know.
Well, now part of the incentive, look, their basic incentive is to try and have a better life. Some of them being trafficked, et cetera, but basically the premise of getting a better life. But part of the incentive also is the fault of American business owners.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that nobody's ever addressed and nobody's ever brought to the forefront is, where do we start holding these business owners liable for using illegal workers, paying them in cash and paying them way below what would be the minimum wage?
Yep.
Because they can't say anything and they're getting away with it. When do these people get held accountable?
Yeah, now that's twofold actually. And me owning construction businesses in the past, I can tell you how this works. So there is a system where we can grab their social security numbers, right, and have them check out. Unfortunately, that's failed time and time and time again. So we believe as construction workers that we have a legitimate legal person with a social security number. What they do is they sell and trade social security numbers over and over and over. Yep, happens. It's commonplace. There's people that actually don't even work in the fields or things like that in California, and they get paid for loaning out their social security number to somebody else. So it's rampant. We have to develop a real system of checks and balances. And that would be, to me, it would have to be an ID based system, almost like a voter ID, to make sure that they're in this country legally, because that becomes a catch-22 for businesses that are trying to do it the right way. But their pitfall is they think they're doing it the right way, and now they're going to be held accountable. That being said, there is a massive industry, in agricultural industry, in my belief system, that intentionally hires illegals, and they do have to be held accountable for that. Now, immediately the pushback is going to be, even from Republicans, well, then our food prices are going to go up, right? Well, are we going to just blindly ignore the law, or are we going to do something about it? Well, you know what you can do? You could have a migrant worker law. You can do that if you truly want to. But guess what? They need to be documented. That's the key. Do you know how many drunk driving incidents crashes and deaths that turn out to be somebody that crossed over illegally? So we can do this. We just have to really bear down. And this is not, we cannot listen to the Marxist left screaming at the top of their lungs, because they don't have our best benefit in mind. That is not on the top of their mind. It is purely about control and disruption. But we have solutions for this, and they're not that hard, the solutions, but documentation is absolutely the key. If it turns out that we need migrant workers, well, then we put in place a law that actually tracks them, and they're documented. And then you can't yell at me and say, well, we're not paying enough, we're paying too much for groceries. No, there is an option there, but they still have to be documented.
Absolutely. Laws and orders. It's really what it amounts to. And
Sure does.
people breaking those laws and orders. Education.
Oh, Lord, don't get me started.
Education, one of the biggest problems in this country, going from number one to the bottom of the heap. Big cities being the worst of them. Blue cities being the worst of the worst. How do we get away from, well, it's easy to get away from the programs that have been started, because those are just BS to begin with.
Mhm.
They're absolute aberrations, and I think they can be pretty easily stopped. But how do you get away from the curricula that's been put out there in many of these schools? And in spite of having been a union worker my entire life, how do you get rid of the unions that protect these teachers who don't do their jobs anymore, who really don't have any interest in teaching? They have just an interest in getting their tenure so they can coast the rest of the way. How do you get past, once you get past that aspect of it, how do you get past the age-old problem of, if you have a principal, an assistant principal, somebody at the school board who has a hard-on for you, without that union, not getting canned? So there's a whole series of stuff, but the most important thing in every aspect throughout this entire war that we've been in is it's about the children. And the children are not getting educated. The children are not even being taught cursive writing anymore. They can't read. They can't write. They can't tell time. They can't add without a calculator. All of these things that every other country gets done in the 3rd or 4th grade, our students might be getting to later in junior high school or in high school.
Yep.
And it's not acceptable in what's supposed to be the greatest country in the world. What do we
Well,
do?
you have several questions there. I'll try to remember all of them, but let me start with, we have to first understand what the enemy is. You need to understand the way the enemy works. So it's not the Department of Education, it's the Department of Indoctrination. That's their goal, is they want to indoctrinate our kids because they can control our kids. They can put them into the Rockefeller realm, put them into the businesses that they want to control in the long run. That's the goal. How do you control a child? It's very easy. You put a lot of fake BS in their mind and have them have that as the priority. So the priority when people go to school now is to make sure you accept the LGBT plus community, that men should be, or boys should be able to use girls' bathrooms, and everybody's called a they them, right? That is the priority, right? And then the priority for the schools after that is making sure they pass a test. Why? Because if they pass a test like Common Core is set up to, they get more funding. So what do? They don't teach them anymore. They get them to memorize for a test. Therefore, there is zero education in public schools. Zero. It just doesn't exist right now. The kids are pawns right now, and it is very, very sad. So, in order to, I believe that the education union is a captured operation right now. But your question is phenomenal. If we get rid of the union, how are we going to hold people accountable for rogue principals or vice principals taking teachers out? I think it's very simple. In our country, we have a jury of our peers. Why couldn't we do the same thing? If a teacher is in serious trouble, if it's a 2 or 3 day suspension, that's one thing. But if they're going to lose their job, lose their pensions, why not have a jury of peers? Maybe five teachers, and it has to be a 3-5 vote, or a or 3-2 vote, or a 4-1 vote, whatever it is. Why wouldn't we do that? To me, that seems like common sense. I just thought of it right now. So, guys, break it down, y'all that are watching this, and see if that's a bad idea. But I think it's actually a really good idea, because it's a way for us to make sure they're still protected if they're doing their jobs. And that's the key. Now we have to motivate the teachers in order to be an educator. Because I would say in most cases, teachers didn't jump into the business to be indoctrinating kids. I think they got pressured into it. They also came from a system of indoctrination. Therefore, they just think that's the way to go. Well, if they're not educating, they have to keep busy some way. So I guess what we're going to do is we're going to spend our time indoctrinating. Well, if we value, I know this is a crazy concept, we value the children and you value the educators, now we can turn the whole thing around. It should be illegal to have anything DEI and illegal to have any woke language in there whatsoever. That's not our job. Now, frankly, if a parent wants to tell their child that they're okay with them being gay, that's great. That is a parent's choice. That is not a teacher's choice. It's not up to a teacher to hide information from a parent because it doesn't fit their personal ideology. It's certainly not up to a teacher to bring in a transgender to read to children because that's their ideology. Shouldn't exist. Very simple principle. Does that mean I'm against you? No. You want to LGBT the hell out of your family? That's your call. I don't want to be in your bedroom, and I don't want to be inside the doors of your family. I believe the way the Republic was set up was proper. But you don't bring this into our schools. The indoctrination has to stop at the front door of our schools. It should only be about education. But I'm going to take it a leap further, Mark. I believe our goal should be able to produce the smartest, the brightest, the most motivated and confident children that we can leaving our schools. So it's much more than sticking your head into a book, or now it would be a Chromebook. So it's much, much more than that, right? We need to tell these kids that you are the best. You can accomplish anything that you want. Anything you put your mind to, you can do it. The word can't doesn't exist in our home, and it should not exist in a school. It says, you know what? If there's a problem, let's make that a challenge, and you and I will work on it together for a solution. So we build free thinking business type people that are motivated to leave school and do whatever their hearts desire. We should value a plumber as high as we value a doctor. But these are the things that must be installed in our children in the level of education. And if they're not, sorry, teachers, you're not a teacher. You're an indoctrinator, and you should be held accountable for that.
You see, I look at the teachers very much so in the same way that I looked at the people that I worked with. Okay, a journalist's job is to ascertain the facts and deliver them to the people, not insert their opinions. Same thing with a teacher. You have information that you have to impart to the children and have them understand what it is that you're imparting to them and move on from there, not insert yours or anyone else's opinions.
Exactly.
You're not being paid for your opinion. So it's a rough thing to get around. It's truly a rough thing to get around. And when you get to, we seem to be getting away from the idea of lack of merit motivation with colleges and this and that and the other, where doesn't make a difference who your parents are or what they're going to contribute to the college. If you have the grades, you get in. If you're if you don't have the grades, or you're of a certain ethnic group or anything else, no, you're not going to get in because you didn't earn it. There are other students that have earned it. And these are things that we have to get away from. But mostly we got to get away from this Common Core stuff. That's just become pathetic. Now, one of the big problems in every state, that every governor has to deal with, every legislature has to deal with, is the milking of the system, the fraud. I don't know how it is in California or many of the other states. I'm a New Yorker, born and bred, but I know in New York, while there are many groups that do it, I know one of the big problems, and you hate to go and rat out your own, but one of the big problems in New York is the abuse by the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, where they go and they get married and have families, but according to Jewish law, not according to the state law. So now they've got a woman and 6, 8, 10 kids, but allegedly no father because there's no husband. And so they're on welfare, and they're on food stamps and Medicaid and all of that stuff that drains the economy, drains those resources, and they don't get to the people who really, truly need it and deserve it. And again, I just use that as an example. I'm not pointing the finger at all of them, but I use that as an example. How do you stop that basic kind of fraud that is just spread like wildfire across the country?
Well, you have to change the makeup inside the services that are handing out these checks. The makeup currently is not about making sure that they're a legitimate recipient of this type of service. That's not the makeup. The makeup is write the check, write the check, write the check, keep as many people in the system, because what does that do? That keeps my friends and all myself employed. Right? So that's the first thing you have to do, is you have to change the ideology within inside these services. And then when you do this, people will be motivated to double check on these things. That is very simple. And again, I say if simple, it's God's work. If it's messy, it's something else. But we're not focusing on the ideology that is rampant within inside all of government. If we have to just be honest with that, it's all about keeping their job, and keeping a job that they don't have to work very hard in many cases. And that's not throwing shade at some really good people that are doing great work inside of government institutions, but we have to all agree that it's probably a lot less than more. In fact, it's probably the 20-80 rule, where it's 20% are doing their job and 80% probably are not. So I believe if we institute that first, then we could start have some regulations and some checking up on these people to see what it is. In regards to that specific case in cases in New York, well, maybe that's going to have to be changed in legislation, isn't it? Right? That if you're proven to be the father, and you're actually living with the family and the child, well,
Yep.
there you go. That's considered a working couple, so she does not get these free services.
Nor should they, but yet they do get away with it.
Yep.
It's
For
a
now.
very rough situation all over the country. It
I
really
agree.
is.
I agree.
Go
Great
ahead.
question. I could always leave it to you to come up with the good ones.
Getting back to a little bit of law and order. You've got all of these situations going on with different groups, and the groups like Antifa that would come into LA or San Francisco or anywhere else and stir up trouble. And I had done a show about 6-8 months ago where I disproved what everybody thought, that, oh, they don't hire crowds for these things. They really do. And actually the business is in LA. So just in case you want to know. But when you've got these type of situations, whose responsibility is it to A, keep them out, and B, deal with them to begin with, again, for the public safety?
It's always the sheriff's responsibility. That's the sheriff's county. The sheriff should not only be responsible, but accountable if they're not handling their business.
So in other words, they should have been, when you saw all of the riots in LA, all the trouble in LA, the ICE agents and everything, they literally should have been the front line between these animals and the ICE agents.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'll take it farther. They should have hooked them up, and instead of letting them go, when in the rare case that they actually do handcuff them and take them away, they should be interrogated. They're a criminal. Find out, where are you getting paid for, right? Who's paying you to do this? And then you go after them. Again, it's simple. These are just simple, but the system is so corrupt that these sheriffs they just bend over, and it's very, very sad. And I'm going to have a stern talking to them. Many won't like me, but I believe, and this is a belief system. And when I created Remember Your Oath, which you may be familiar with, I believe that when we get enough, we the people, to support these sheriffs, they're going to feel empowered now. I don't think they all want to roll over. I believe there's a huge percentage of them that want to do the right thing, but they just get no support. All they do is get heat. So when we show up at their office after they did the right thing with 50 or 100 people and say, "You're the man. Thank you very much for this. We really appreciate you," right? They're going to say, "Okay, let's keep working on this." Because the reality is they work for us. But let me ask you a question. So, Mark, if you work for me and I'm your boss, right? Should I shit on you all day, or should I praise you when you do something wonderful?
This is something that I asked for all the years that I worked. I don't mind getting bawled out if I screw up, but by that same token, you damn well better praise me when I do a good job.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is missing from every possible workplace in this country.
Because you know what? What's not in the workplace is empowerment. And if empowerment was there, if business owners would just realize that you empower your employees, they're going to empower you. But they have short-term thinking in general, not long-term thinking. And I certainly believe that we, the people, need to be more active, because we're talking about the future of all the children to come, many generations, right? So if a sheriff's doing a great job, you darn well better be taking care of that sheriff, patting him on the back, saying, "Thank you very much." Hold a celebration for that sheriff, right? That's okay. You can do that. If he's not doing his job, you darn well better be at his front door holding him accountable. Very simple principles. This is why when people elect me, and I believe they will, they're just really electing a simple dude. And I honestly think that's all you need. You don't need these very complicated things. These are very basic life principles that if we can just get back to this type of thinking, common sense, troubleshooting thinking, we've got this.
See, now you're experiencing something that a lot of people don't ever get a chance to do. And you're experiencing all of the good and bad issues of doing this. And something that's always been my pet peeve since I investigated into it and learned about it is the ridiculous amount of money that it costs to run for office, which leads to the issue of corrupt politicians, because you and I can't go to these $25,000 a plate dinners You and I can't donate, $100,000 to somebody's campaign or $50 million to somebody's campaign. These are people with power and with money, and they do it because of control. If they control the people who make the laws are made in their favor and not in ours. Is there anything in your position, at least within the boundaries of the state, that can stop campaign finance? The campaign finance has to be a grassroots situation.
Not yet, but yes, there can be. There can be. We can put up legislation that would prevent this mass financing, right? It's a catch-22 for me right now. There's no way I'm going to win this election without a ton of money. So I'll give you a perfect example. This is the greatest example. Many people don't know a week ago that I was in a debate. And I was in a debate against 12 other Republican candidates. Think about that. Steve Hilton was there. Well, everything Hilton does, he's on the news. He's on the news. He gets posts. Everybody talks about Hilton's doing this now. Hilton's doing this now. Why is it that there's a complete media blackout on this debate? Does that even make sense to anybody listening to this? Why is it possible that this guy gets all the attention, but the second he does the debate, where I believe I did a damn good job against him. In fact, unilaterally, I'm hearing from even other managers of candidates that I took the debate. We won it. I'm hearing that not from myself, not from my team, from other people. But it's crickets. You will not find one media organization, even the ones that you guys think are good, are talking about this.
Yep.
That is as scary as it possibly can be, because that means this is a selection, not an election, right? So how am I going to combat this? Well, we're going to use guerrilla marketing techniques, which we're very good at. We have something coming out probably in a day or two that literally will be Hilton versus Herms. We're going to show the whole debate, and we're going to get to our resources and put that out everywhere we can. So people are going to, and it's going to ask them, why was there a media blackout on this? And then we're going to use this, and we're going to go to the media, and we're going to call up on our volunteers to everybody start tagging the social media and saying, what's going on here? We, the people, have to take our country back. This is not about Lewis Herms. This is not about me. It's not even about California. This is about our country. So if we're going to allow this BS to continue, well, then we deserve what we got. That's just what it comes down to, and take me out of the picture. Take me out of the picture. Hilton did a debate. Take me out of it with 11 other candidates. Lewis Herms wasn't even there. Why did nobody hear about it? Right? Besides his poor performance. Why is that? These are the questions that we need to be asking, and we need to get to the news media and pushing them over and over and over. Why are you ignoring this? And hold them accountable, because I'll tell you what, they're not going to do anything until the people step up and start pushing back. And we will win if we push back. But until then, good luck. It's crickets. And I challenge anybody right now, go try to find that debate. Good luck. It won't be on any of the media whatsoever.
Well, it's on Rumble, on fake news, and why.
Independent. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, we discussed this before we came to air. And, besides simulcasting it, I watched the debate. There was no doubt about the fact that you won the debate.
Appreciate that.
But the amazing part to me, as I told you before, was you got, to use modern day terminology, you got no love from nobody. I mean, everything was about Hilton.
Mm-hmm.
And one other person, I forget his name, but that was it. That was it. And that, was part of the lyrics that I wrote. It was a simple fact that, we don't need another career politician. We don't need another TV personality. We don't need another big businessman. We need somebody who understands the plight of the mainstream individual. And that's gone so far afield in this country in every election, from president all the way down to dog catcher. It's a popularity contest, and it's who can raise the most money from the worst people.
Mhm.
And who are the losers? We are. And why are we the losers? We put ourselves there. The voter apathy and the public apathy have landed us where we are. You can't be an absentee landlord and run a corporation.
Yeah,
It just doesn't work.
absolutely. And the reality is, we can change the laws in the future, but if we're gonna beat the apparatus, sorry guys, you're gonna have to donate. It is what it is, you know. And like I said, is sometimes you have to make yourself uncomfortable in order to be comfortable. The last thing I ever want to do is ask for money. I don't even think the system as it exists should exist this way. But when I'm going up against somebody that has $50 million, I win the debate. Nobody hears about it. I get calls from all over the nation in support, and local and politicians calling me saying, I want to talk to you. I had a huge meeting with a county representative today that was just ecstatic. But doesn't matter. Does it matter if I don't get my name out there? Right? And I'm not looking to just make a bunch of buddies. We need to take back California. We can do it. I promise you we can do it, but we need volunteers, which are coming in very strong. Thank you, God, for that. And we need money currently. Now, will I work to try to change those laws? 100%, but I have to work within the construct right now. So y'all, you can only donate up to $39,200 a piece, just so you know that.
And it's right up there in the right-hand corner.
Yeah,
You can see
yeah.
that QR code.
Oh, thank you. So don't go past that. But the good news for us is the California construct, I believe, was created as a corruption system. So you can accept money from anywhere in the world. So anybody watching, it could be anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country. You can go to my website and donate, and we'd appreciate it. And my wife even tells me, she goes, I know you hate it, but you have to ask for it, or people aren't going to do it.
And that's the hardest part, because we regular folk know how hard it is for everybody right now.
That's right.
They have made it that hard. We've allowed them to make it that hard. So that we know what it takes to ask others to contribute to something. You know, part of my feeling, you know, that I've been supporting this ARC training for the kids, because that's very personal to both of us.
Yeah, it's huge.
And when you have 40,000 people, 50,000 people watching a show, if everybody who watched the show donated $1, you know how far that goes? At $600 a pop to get people trained, and how much of the rest of it can go toward building the children's ranch, et cetera, et cetera. People, yes, we're in hard times, but you want to take back the country, you need to put yourself behind it a little bit in any little way that you possibly can. And it's a perfect example right here. You common man running for a huge elected office in probably one of the most corrupt states in the country. And if you want to see that change, instead of sitting and watching the news and laughing about what's going on in Hollywood and LA, and, you know, who's doing this to who and everything else, and what a joke California is, and what a joke Mr. Hands over there is, do something about it. Do something about it. Even if all you can afford is $1. Do it. Don't go to Starbucks and pay $5 for a coffee. Donate it to something that's going to help what you want for the future. And for all the Californians, you know, I'm not a Californian, but in my opinion, this is what you want for California. This is what you need for California. And if you want things to move forward, you got to do what you have to do. So, I mean, there's a million and one things that we could continue to discuss. I don't want to impinge more on your time because I know that you've been running your butt off for a while now. But, people, I encourage you all to support Lewis in any way. Like I said, you've got the QR code up in the right-hand corner there. You can scan that, go right to his website being right here, hermsforcali.com. Any support that you can give, if you can give money, fine. If you can volunteer, if you're in California, fine. Every little bit helps. We all have to do what we have to do to support each other and to make this work. I know you're probably tired of hearing me say it, but if this thing is going to have legs, we've all got to stand up and pitch in. And that's, again, why we started the show with local action brings on national impact. It's very, very, very important that we keep that in mind and we do what we have to do. So, Governor, once again, I thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure. As I said in the beginning, I am honored to call you a friend, and let's hope that we can make this all work. And everybody, only because I'm so entertained by it, I'm going to close out the show the way that we started it. We'll see you all again next week. Have a wonderful week, and join us again next Sunday for another Respect.
Take care.
Good night, everybody.
You need to put me in the state house. You should make a governor out of me. I'll jump right in and fix up California, and all I have to do is just be me. Well, I promise I'll clean up San Francisco. I'll cut your taxes, you'll all think that's swell. From Sacramento, I'll fix education. Make sure that all your children learn well. Well, I hope you all make Lewis Herms your governor, and not some bald-head Brit who's on TV, or businessman or career politician. Just a regular guy who's just like you and me. I'll clean the parks so you don't have wildfires. Make sure the border's safe for you and me. The Constitution's always been my guideline, 'cause law and order is what I believe. Well, I tell you, I won't be one big phony. Won't make hand gestures like I've lost my mind. I'll make sure that we take care of our people, and we won't leave no one behind. So I hope you'll vote to put me in the State House. Then I know that you will smile and say, we're glad that we made Lewis Herms our governor, because he's the best trust for California.